I told you the Wall Street Journal did a profile on 4 retirees. One of them
I saw that article and I couldn't read the whole thing.
is painful.
Can I afford? And then like the first guy that they interviewed had like $2 million.
Well, that was the point. 2 million. What does $2 million buy? So yeah, the guy who has $2 million, a $6,900 a month net pension, owns 2 homes, is now
That was
yeah,
what did it. I was like, he's got 2 million, but then they said he's got a $7,000 a month pension. I was like, get out of here.
he's not buying bag salad anymore because he's worried about inflation.
For-
That
Right.
might be the way to start because so
Yeah.
what about us? Do you have $1 million cash balance pension building? I don't. Who's going to save it for you? Ain't nobody coming to your rescue.
No one's coming.
No one's coming.
That's the message that nobody's getting, but when they do get, it's too late.
So that's maybe that's the angle in to start about
Okay.
how to motivate ourselves.
Welcome to the Money Huddle, a podcast that discusses financial topics for families, retirees, and small business owners. Hosted by Michael Baker and Ross Marinell. All opinions expressed by Michael and Ross or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and may not reflect the opinions of Advisory Alpha. The podcast recording is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Advisory Alpha may maintain positions in securities discussed on the program.
Welcome back to the Money Huddle. My name is Michael Baker, and I'm here with Timmy Trumpet himself, aka Ross Marinell. Ross, how you doing today, buddy?
Michael, is fantastic to see you today. Happy Friday.
I know.
May it
Labor
please
Day
tell me,
weekend. Here we go.
did you please tell me you saw Timmy Trumpet come out from basically like behind the home plate. For people who don't know, Edwin Diaz is the closer for the New York Mets. He comes out to this song. It's called Narcos, but it's got this awesome trumpet rhythm to it.
It's
He gets that
fantastic.
crowd rowdy.
Yeah.
And the other day, he had the trumpet player, Timmy Trumpet, was there live, and they went. It was gangbusters.
100%. It's super exciting. Even if you're not a huge baseball person, which I'm not. I mean, it might be the greatest entrance since Wild Thing Rick Vaughn for the Cleveland
Dude, that's
Indians.
exactly what I was thinking the other day. I was like, this is Vaughn coming out of the dugout for Major League.
Because that is probably the all-time like baseball entrance. Like, I know it's a movie, but I don't think anyone could ever top that. But this was pretty cool.
Dude, it has to be top 5 entrance music for the last 10 years that I could think of.
I agree, 100%. So let's
So,
dive. Let's dive in, man. What do you got for me
so
this
let's
morning?
dive in. All right, Michael. Today, it's a Friday. It's been busy few weeks with headlines and financial news and stress. And I thought just today start off with something um, out of the ordinary. I don't want to. I don't want to jump in with finances just yet. I want you to
Gotcha.
give me 1 minute. I have a take. I have an unpopular take. Are you
You have
ready?
a. You have a. You told me you were saving something just for me.
This is it. I'm ready because I know
All
how
right,
much you love film and TV.
shoot for the hip.
You're not gonna like this one bit, but I'm gonna tell it to you anyway.
Let's go.
House of the Dragon is terrible.
Listen,
This is
hey, hold on. Don't judge me too fast.
okay.
I don't know if you
Are you with me
saw.
on this?
I don't know if you saw me. Like I put it out there into the Twitterverse. Like it might be a little early, but I just don't know. I just don't know if it's gonna measure up.
It is the Lifetime television series version of Game of Thrones. It,
Yeah,
it's so disappointing. The writing is awful. There's no Tyrion Lannister. There's no incredible characters to just draw you in.
right. I
These
think
people.
about. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm trying to go back in my head and think about the Game of Thrones and like 2 episodes in. I felt like there were so many different storylines that were in families and different things that were kind of introduced early on that you got to kind of follow each of those along. And they were just it was so masterfully done, except for like the last season and a half, two
Yeah.
seasons. It got bad. But this one, this is where I'm at with this. highly anticipated prequel.
Mhm.
Obviously, Game of Thrones was, just record breaking. So they've got the audience that they want's attention.
Sure.
My thing is what are you going to do to like put a stake in the ground for yourself? You can't like introduce us to dragons because we've done there. We've been there, done that.
Mhm.
Like the Night King, we've been there, done like I mean, what are you gonna do? Like right now, it's just like it's like a family squabble, and the characters aren't even all that compelling. So I'm just like, y'all
Feels like
better,
a daily soap opera where there's so much dead space that
yeah.
I turned around and looked at my wife the other day. I was like, "This is the most boring show I've watched in like 3 months. It's
They better
terrible."
figure it out. They better figure it out. I think I saw the first. Here's what they did. The first episode was streamed or viewed over like 25 million viewers. So using that data, HBO went ahead and greenlit season 2. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys don't want to wait like a couple weeks? Because there's a ton of people that will check out the first episode just to kick the tires, right? They
Yeah.
missed out on Game of Thrones. They're like, maybe I could check this out. And the last numbers I saw for season 2 was like 10 million.
Mhm.
Excuse me, episode 2 was like 10 million. I'm like, that's a significant drop.
Well, they got me to 2, and I'm checked out. So, Marinelle is gonna see
Well,
that one later.
there is good news. There is good
Okay.
news.
Alright. Hit me with it.
Today, Amazon has a series, The Rings of Power. They're putting I think $1 billion into this series.
I heard.
It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, that type of storyline. So there, not only does House of the Dragon have a competitor, it's a formidable, story arc with, the Lord of the Rings and that type of stuff. So
Okay.
we
Well,
could check
look,
that
I
out
hope
and see if we've got something.
I hope their writers' room is stronger than House of the Dragon because that's bad. All right. Well, I thought I was going to catch you off guard with that take, but apparently we are in
I don't
lockstep
know,
that it's a
man.
terrible
Maybe
show.
maybe it's working together for 10 years. Like you're rubbing off on me, and I'm just like not as excited about things as I used to be.
Oh God, that's what's happening. That's what I'm bringing to the table.
I'm
I bring your
developing. Hey,
expectations
listen,
down.
man. We totally rock Guns N' Roses. What's not Paradise City? What's the other one? Sweet Child of Mine. Like that came on the other day, and Harrison's like, leave it on because he's all about big time
Ooh,
guitar solos right now.
nice. I might talk to Harrison about that next time I see him.
So there you go.
All right, that's awesome. So I've got one main topic I want to kind of chew on today
All right.
that's financially related. And what brought it to my attention, what kind of got me going down this rabbit hole was the Wall Street Journal profiled 4 retirement age families this past week. And the article, so obviously they kind of dig into 4 different people, their stories, what their retirement has been like, and kind of digging it into some of the challenges that they had. Obviously, it's some of the themes that you would understand. What to do with your time, what occupies you, what motivates you, what drives you, that kind of stuff. But when I got to some of the financial components of what the savers had accomplished and what some of their challenges were, I really kind of focused in on one of the profiled participants. Her name was Judy Hall,
Okay.
and she was a 37-year veteran of Berkshire Hathaway business, and I think in human resources. And what caught my attention was this. It says, and all 4 of these people had saved about $2 million, just to give you a ballpark. So this was kind of
Gotcha.
profiling people who had saved about $2 million, what their living expenses were like, how their cash flow continued on, and what sort of their financial security was. And so for Judy, she had saved 6% over this 37-year work history with Berkshire Hathaway into her 401k.
Okay.
The
What a
company
401k
matched
to have. Berkshire Hathaway's 401k.
a the company matched 6% along the way. And so the combination of her contribution and the employer match produced about $1 million at retirement for Judy. The other component that she had to get to the $2 million gap was $1 million pension benefit that she rolled over to an IRA. So she would have had the choice. She could have annuitized it, created income from that pension, or roll it over to an IRA. She chose to roll it over. So she ended up with $2 million. But this is what sticks out to me.
Okay.
She only contributed 500,000 to that through her,
Through her savings.
and through her employee contributions.
Yeah. Everything
And,
else was employer, like bonus comp, profit
and
sharing,
right, matching contributions on
pensions,
401k. You got
matchings.
it.
Okay.
And I'm thinking and talking to our Gen X cohort out there that
Mhm.
listens to our show, that works with us, that hears this. Where's that $1.5 million of company match and pension funds coming for that generation?
Yeah.
And the reality is, Michael, for a lot of folks, it's not coming.
It's not coming.
And we're on our own. And so the difference between Judy's fairly comfortable financial retirement circumstances, about 75% of that was contributed via the company. And, hey, she saved $500,000. That's nothing to be, to knock. But the rest of it came from the other sources. And I'm telling you, I am worried that if we are not saving enough and taking enough control over
Mhm.
that as a generation, we're going to get to retirement and there's not going to be $2 million there. There's going to be 500,000 there. And I'm worried.
Was Judy married?
Well, it profiled her, and so
Okay.
that was her savings. So if there
Okay.
was anyone else in the household, then they contributed their own
Well, I
as
was
well.
just
But
thinking
I don't think
because
so.
with, $2 million, but in a single filer tax bracket, that's some pain.
I love when your mind goes to her tax bracket.
Taxes,
And
dude.
so, folks, as you know, taxes and income distributions is really important. It's something we focus a
Taxes
lot of time on.
taxes are, hey, we can never divorce ourselves from the
But
tax code.
I am just saying, for the record, we are on our own for the most part. And I'm not saying everybody's in that same bucket, because there
Yeah.
will be people who have company matches and there will be some other benefits. But in large part, the company contributions that existed for other generations before us is not there at the same capacity that it will be for us.
So I'm going to read something to you. You know, we live in a consumer-driven culture. One thing America does exceptionally well is make champion consumers. We need to be creating champion savers. That's your business partner right there. That's the current article I'm working on.
There we
Um,
go.
so I'm the article that I hope to have done by the time we can air this podcast. That'll be out for everyone that subscribes to our newsletters. Will get that article. It'll be posted up. And obviously we're talking about it here on the podcast. I'm titling it "Failure is an Option," and the reason behind that is we've kind of allowed ourselves as a culture, as a society, to kind of go into this malaise, maybe even to this false sense of security that we don't have to do our own push-ups. And for our younger people, exactly what you were saying, our parents' retirement isn't going to be what our retirement looks like. Our parents, many of them had an opportunity for pensions. I'm thinking about my parents. My dad had a pension. My mom had a pension, right? You, this lady, there was another person in that story that they profiled, and I even told you this. I didn't read the story because I started reading it, and they were talking about him having $2 million,
Yeah,
and then they mentioned that he had almost a $7,000 a month pension benefit.
that's correct.
And I said, I'm not reading this. This is a waste of time because this is not what an average retiree in America's experience looks like. It's not even close.
I will recharacterize it going forward. It's not going to look like that.
Well,
Did
I
it in
think
the
of
past? Well, it was more possible. It happened more, but
what?
is it going to happen for the people in their 40s and 50s today?
Sure. And so that is exactly where my mind is, especially for younger boomers we're looking at you too,
Mhm.
but Gen X, we have got to be saving. And I know a lot of people are thinking like, well, I can't save. I'm raising kids and I'm doing this. We've got to start somewhere. We've got to find a way to save something and begin building, because I have theories about this too that I'm going to write about in the article. But
Okay.
one of the biggest ones that I will share is I think about it as a discipline. It's like a muscle. If you don't ever work it out, you can't just go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. You can't not ever save anything and then decide, well, when I turn 50, I'm going to start putting back $2,000 a month. It's not likely going to happen, right? So it's better to be building something you can, like, adjust and be flexible with over time, but you're consistently doing something little by little
I
to
think
work towards an end goal.
I think you need the groundwork, the ability to make those contributions. At some point, people are in that pit of despair where we've talked about this before, where they're still supporting their children, they're getting them through college, they're paying down their mortgages, they've got car. It can be challenging, but this is why I'm Timmy Trumpet today, and thinking
Gotcha.
about this guy because when we get to the ninth inning, and for some of our Gen X cohort, you're into the last 5 to 10 years of your working career.
Right.
Like this is the we need to become the closers. And I think about this Edwin Diaz coming in for the Mets. He's a great closer. He's got his ERA is like 1.28 something. He's an unbelievable season, right? The guy's got two pitches, man. He throws a slider and a fastball. You're getting a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, or you're getting 91-mile-an-hour slider, but you ain't hitting them.
Oh,
But he
right.
can't do that forever, right? He's not going to pitch 9 games like that. And you may not be able to save what I hope you can save every year. But when you get to that last stretch where we got to make it count, we got to get the W, then we've got to do some things that we haven't done before. And I'm talking about if you're a dual income household, you may be saving one entire salary to catch up. And you might be able to, in the last 5 to 10 years, save 6 figures a year. That sounds like a lot
Maybe.
of money. I'm telling you, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we're not up there trying to play 9 innings anymore. We've got the last stretch to get the win. And we have to do outlandish. We have to get almost crazy. Like, those people come out, they're crazy. Like, they're not
Mhm.
coming walking. The closer doesn't walk to the mat like a normal human being. Right? He's not going in there thinking, "Well, it's just another day. I'll be balanced.
Yeah.
I'll be cool. I'll be." No, he's going out there thinking he's wild man.
Well, I think too, and maybe this is a different way of saying the same thing. We've told a few people, especially when they're getting close to retirement, 1 year, maybe 2 years out, to start living on what they believe their retirement budget would be, and then saving everything else, just to see if they could do it. Some people come in and they say, "Oh, this is what our retirement, this is what we're going to live on in retirement," but they're not living on that number now. Their income is way higher than that, and I'm like, well, let's do a trial run. Let's see how you do for the
Right.
next year living on that amount. Can you do it?
Right.
And some people, they're able to do it fine, and some people that they come back and they're like, you know what? Maybe we were a little optimistic. And
Kind
I
of going.
think I think that is a key thing for people to understand, is that, you know, one of the hard things about retirement, despite all the wonderful things we look forward to, hopefully people that are listening to our show are looking forward to retirement. They're looking to retire to something. But one of the things that does stop and what makes it challenging is, you've kind of said, "Hey, I'm no longer going to work for my income. Now I'm going to be provided my income by my savings, by my sources of income that I might have in retirement, like a Social Security. Maybe you have a pension, but that's what you're going to make it work, because it's not in your plan to say, okay, at 75, if things get tight, I'm going to go back to work, because it's probably not an option."
It, um, some people may have to. It it is an option, just not the desirable one, and it's not where you're not going to be working where you want to work. You may retire from your career and then have to go back and do something totally different that you don't want to do. Here's
Mhm.
part of that, what I think is challenging. You said the kind of the lead into your story was we create master consumers and
Oh,
we just
champion.
spend
Yeah.
in debt. And I feel like we are in the midst of a debt spiral. And one of the things that sort of detracts us from being personally responsible to ourselves sometimes and making good fiscal decisions in our own household is that we watch money being wasted around us left and right. I mean, think about this. I looked up the national, I was on the debt clock today, just kind
Mm.
of looking at where we
Oh,
are.
the debt clock. Do we still run that anymore?
Bro, it's running full speed ahead. That doesn't stop. In 2008, okay, so for my Gen X people, you're coming out of the GFC, probably some maybe an upending change for your life, for your career, depending on
Mm.
what you were doing. There was about $10 trillion in national debt,
Wow.
10.5 trillion.
It seems like such a small number compared to what we are today.
I know it's $31 trillion. It's almost $31
Unbelievable.
trillion today.
God almighty.
It's 14 years, man.
Yeah.
And here's another one. The Federal Reserve. We've been talking about the Fed all for 2 years now. Back in 2008, they had 1 trillion on their balance sheet. Today, they have just under 9.
Yeah.
So between the two of them, you're talking about 29, $30 trillion in debt spent. And so, yeah, you're looking around, you're going, wait a second, I'm supposed to save all my money? I want to have some fun. I want to do some things. I want to have a nice car. I want to go on a nice vacation. And
Mhm.
I'm just going, yeah, their fiscal responsibility doesn't change what we have to do for our own family. I mean, we could watch people around us doing crazy things all day long. It doesn't mean we should be doing it too. But it does pull on us, right? Because we go, golly, we just spent $500 billion to pay college, student loan debt that we don't have. That we're gonna, we'll print it, and the government can do that, but we can't. So what happens for us? It's crazy. We're seeing housing prices are up, which pushes our home mortgage payments up to. Listen to this. In 2020, I found the statistic the other day. In the South, they broke it down by region. So in the South, the average principal and interest payment was about a little over $1,000 a month. Today, just the P&I, so not your taxes, not your homeowner's insurance, not your HOAs, all that stuff. It's 1764.
Mm.
That's 2 years. Dude, we were looking at that article and talking about it earlier. The average car loan now, this is a car and driver article. The average car loan is between $650 and $700 a month. And the average car price is
It's in
$47,148.
it's insane. No, it's insane.
I'm telling
Like,
you, like car payments are what mortgage payments used to be.
well, we have, so I think I said this on our last episode, and I talked about that there's a quote, and I put it was in the podcast that Dan Ariely was on. I think he was on Meb Faber's podcast, and he talked about how much, like, we know so much about what our neighbors are spending and consuming, but we know so very little about what they're saving and how financially healthy they actually are. And we've talked about this. You know, Jeep came out with a new SUV. It's not new, but it's a relaunch of their SUV, the Wagoneer.
Yeah.
And I looked at this thing before I even when they launched it. It's beautiful. I will give it credit. It's a beautiful machine. And I thought, I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
I could definitely use more space. Maybe it makes sense just to, upgrade a tiny bit. They want $100,000 for that thing. And I just kind of laughed, like that uncomfortable laugh when I figured out what the price was, because I thought, wow, like you've got to be insane to spend that. No offense to anyone if you're driving a Wagoneer, but
Look,
hopefully your $1,000 a month car payment is in line relative with your overall cash flow. Because I tell people this all the time. Look, debt debt's only an issue to the extent that it encumbers your cash flow. I mean, if you make $1 million a year, go buy a Wagoneer.
Right.
No one
There's
cares,
some people absolutely
you know.
could pay for it, don't not bat an eye and don't care, and that's
But
fine.
your neighbor may make $1 million a year and drive a Wagoneer, and you might make $125,000 a year, and you want to be like your neighbor and go buy a Wagoneer, and that math don't fly, you know. Um, and I think that's what it is. You know, I think I sent you an interview the other day with Charlie Munger, and he had the quote is like, greed doesn't drive, drive markets. Is like or drive consumption. It's envy. And I
Mm,
think that's a lot of what we are doing now in society and culture. And this isn't a society culture podcast, but it colors the decisions that we make with our money. We make a lot of financial decisions because we are looking to, you know, compete or keep up with the Joneses or fit into a certain societal class that we see ourselves belonging to. And sometimes we need to be thinking more about, hey, is 80-year-old me going to have money, or is 45-year-old me going to spend all of 80-year-old me's money?
well, and I think too, like, there's gotta be a bigger motivation than that, because that's the problem, right? We're not worried about what we're gonna be like at 80. We're saying, I wanna puff my chest out a little bit today because my neighbors are doing it, and I don't wanna be left behind on some of this enjoyment today. And there's gotta be a bigger motivation, that there's gotta be something else we can do to encourage each other to spend more time saving and focusing and celebrating it, and just sort of having that extra little bit of inspiration to go for it, because it won't be worried about what we're doing when we're 80 and 85 when you're 45. I'm just telling you. I think it's like, what's in the next 15 years? That's why I'm saying we don't have time to mess around. We
Yeah.
don't, it ain't 40 years from now. It's 10.
Hmm.
And this is it. We're the dude, the closer's coming out of the bullpen. And it's like, we've got this moment and we better be fired up.
I agree. And I think, that it's a topic that we probably need to spend more time talking about because there's so many things and to put it in a positive light, to put it in a positive light. I tell people all the time, like we have a system, our system of capitalism. It really works well if you have capital.
Mhm.
And so when you have market downturns or you have opportunities to invest in a startup business. We were just talking the other day about one of our local coffee shops here, and I'll give them a shout out here on the podcast, Knowledge Perk, with Ryan and his team. They're doing some really cool stuff, and they've opened up the opportunity to people in the community to actually invest in some of those locations. But you can't do that if you can't save and have some money that you can deploy when those opportunities come up, because they're going to do their fundraise, they're going to get their money and they're going to move on. They're not going to say, "Oh, well, I'll wait for a year and a half, 2 years for you to get the money to be able to invest." And so there's so many positives. Think about I'll never forget this. Years ago when we first started working and actually started making some decent money, more money than I had ever made a year in that point in my life. And I remember paying off my credit card bill, like, for the
Mhm.
last time, like,
Mhm.
and I use credit cards now, like, as working, like, working debt, I mean, I pay them off each month, but this was, like, my last I can't get this debt paid payment. It was the final, like, done, and I remember how freeing it felt to have, like, some emergency fund cash in the bank, to have some consistent income coming in, and not have, like, debt, and finally feel like, "Okay, I'm ready to, like, be a be a
Yeah.
be a grown
Dude,
up."
it's like you got a positive stat on your scorecard that day. It's like Diaz getting a strikeout. It's like, boom, that happened.
Yes,
Put that on my history, a net worth calculator. Yep, paid off the credit card. Boom. One thing off the list.
and I think the message is for our younger people, but even for people that haven't retired yet. So just put yourself wherever you are on that spectrum, but I think the message is the trumpet is playing,
Mm,
because if you don't believe me, if you've got kids, just think about how fast your kids are growing up and why, like how that's your metric for how quickly the time goes. We will blink, our
Mhm.
kids will be graduating. Others of you who have already done that, you will blink and you will be staring down the barrel of retirement or retirement age. And the only question will be like, can you make it work, or are you going to have to continue working, or you're going to have to continue doing something because you weren't able to save effectively? And so that is a message that we want to continue to put out, but I don't think it has to be a negative thing. I think there's a lot of positive stuff that comes with being a great saver.
And I'll say this too. I know there are people out there that are doing everything they can. They're managing their expenses as well as humanly possible. They just don't have the capacity to chunk money away. And I'm not criticizing those folks at all. That's not what I'm coming to the folks that are saying I have a choice. I can buy $110,000 car or a $90,000 car, or I could find a $40,000 car and save a lot of money. And I'm thinking about the decisions, those kind of big ticket decisions. We've always talked about focusing on the big purchases, not the little rinky dink coffee,
Mhm.
this day or that day. And those big purchases are getting more and more important because the stakes are going up. And it used to be a fancy car was 40. You could get a pretty cool car 10 years ago for $40,000. Today, that car is 90. And it's gotten out of control.
I agree, and I think that the one thing that everyone should be sober about is the likelihood of what you said earlier. No one is coming to save you. Our parents, if you're Gen X, our parents, we're all living longer. Our parents are living longer. Money that they have saved and put up for their own retirement. We sit in these meetings with these boomers. They love you to death. They love
They
you.
do. They
They
love
will
you.
not let you be homeless, but they are not planning their retirement lifestyles with you in mind. They are wanting to do the things that they've wanted to do. They have raised you. They hopefully have helped you maybe with school. They dote on their grandkids, but they are wanting to travel. They're wanting to have life experiences. They're wanting to enjoy the golden years of their life. And then when that's done, they have potential to use money or spend money on healthcare costs because we're living so much longer now than usual. So don't be anticipating that you're going to get a significant inheritance. Inheritance may be great, but don't plan your life that you're going to receive that. Don't plan your life that Social Security is going to pay us 100%. And if you don't have a pension, you don't have that leg to stand on either. So you got to look in the mirror and say, "Hey, it's on us. It's on you."
Hey,
It's
fire up the theme song. Let's come barreling out of the bullpen. Not playing games.
There it
We're
is.
coming. We're coming to get the job done.
And we're here to lace up our bootstraps and do it with you. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us for the conversation. Ross and I, we're in this season of life with you. So we're not talking about the stuff that we're not also doing ourselves
I
and
feel it. I
and
feel it in
cheering
my
each other on as well.
yeah.
So we'll talk to you next time. If you got a topic you'd love for us to talk about, feel free to shoot us an email at themoneyhuddle@bcplanning.com. And otherwise, we will talk to you next time.